So the third initiation is particularly powerful. It's an important, in a sense, each initiation is important and a powerful transition in its own right. And for the third initiation, the key significance of the third initiation is that that there's a part of our nature that was formed a long time ago when we became a human being. We could refer to it as our human soul. In other words, kind of being that we were before becoming human. We had a type of soul or spiritual nature then, but we didn't have a human soul. This was like a new dimension added to our being. But our human soul is something that develops through human incarnations, particularly. Many incarnations, our human soul gains in self-knowledge and in wisdom. It learns about, in a much more intimate way, in a more individualized way, it learns about karma. It's one of the reasons that the body of this human soul is called the causal body sometimes. In the same way, too, that the intuitive body is called the Anandamaya Kosa. This body in that same tradition is called the Vijnandamaya Kosa. Vijnanda comes from the same similar root as Jnana, Vijnana. Jnana means wisdom. It's the wisdom body. And in this case, relative wisdom. That means instead of the wisdom of seeing that everything is God or Buddha nature, you could call that absolute wisdom. This is relative wisdom. It's the wisdom of understanding karma, understanding our capacity to make choices that transform our nature, understanding the significance of those choices, how we can generate positive karma, positive traits, cultivate positive qualities, take positive actions. All of that way of thinking, the karmic relative wisdom, discrimination between wholesome and unwholesome, positive and negative, thoughts, motivations, behaviors, all of that has the nucleus of that in our nature is our human soul. And that's the part that remembers each life. It projects itself into incarnation while most of it remains. It shines a light into each incarnation. But when it shines that light into each incarnation, that light of awareness and presence that our human soul has and is developing from life to life mixes with the personality, mixes with our ordinary desires and emotions and physical identity and so on. And we create a secondary self, sometimes called the incarnate self, the personality, the human ego, if you will. And that part, for the majority of our human incarnations, is also growing and gaining in wisdom. And its experiences is what sort of fuels the human soul, the inner self, in its development of wisdom. It's kind of digesting all that experience in our soul and turning it into wisdom. But for the vast majority of that journey, these two selves can be thought of as distinct, especially because the incarnate self doesn't really remember that its innermost source and nature is the human soul, the inner self. So one of the profound significances of the third initiation is that's the stage at which the incarnate self gradually transforms and matures to the point where it experiences a merging of its identity back into the inner self, the soul, the human soul. So that all of the wisdom and virtue that's been developing over lives, that's gradually been infusing the personality during the earlier stages of the path, which is a lot of work, takes time, patient practice over a significant period of time. And our personality is gradually transformed, and we go through the first initiation and the second initiation. But by the third initiation, a deep culmination has taken place, where the inner soul, the human soul, with its spiritual qualities that's developed over many lifetimes, and all the wisdom that it's harvested from all those lifetimes, is now very strongly integrated with the personality. Now, that inner part of our nature is vast, and so it's not possible even at that stage to fully incarnate all the richness. So there'll be memories of other lives, or even specific, deep qualities or spiritual understandings that don't all necessarily come through fully into the personality, but the basics kind of nature of the inner self or soul is strongly integrated into the personality, so that for the most part, we could say they're not really being experienced as separate anymore. And that, even though that's not a deeply, completely non-dual state, it's a very wholesome state. It's a peaceful, spacious, and of course the qualities that personality, that inner self has, and now the personality integrated with it will also depend on the specific soul, like what ray leanings that soul has. And so not everybody's qualities, you can't say, oh, that person doesn't look very compassionate, so they can't be a third degree initiate, because that's what soul is. It's compassion. Some souls have a lot of compassion. Some kind of lean towards other qualities. Maybe they're courageous and fierce. They're warriors. Maybe they're wise and equanimous. So it depends on the person. Some people at the third initiation are going to lean one way, some the other. Some are devotional. Some are very grounded and meticulous in their day-to-day lives, and their karma yoga is very advanced. And most people have some kind of combination, but there's usually a leaning, so we can't, we have to be flexible in our understanding of ourselves or other people if we're trying to understand this. So there's a great deal that can be said about the third initiation. I've given a lot of, clues and hints and descriptions in the handouts, and it would take many hours to sort of unpack all of that, to explain a lot of the details. But the gist is that the third degree initiate is now in a state where the awareness, for instance, that was developing in the earlier stages, that's getting stronger, for instance, in day-to-day life, the ability to kind of be present and to kind of bring forth spiritual qualities into a context where we want to say, be more patient, be more content, be more detached, be more kind, be more compassionate. That ability to just even be wakeful and be present and be mindful is now a steady state. It's persistent throughout the day. It's strongly integrated into our lives, and it's quite bright. It's quite clear. So it's not only persistent, but it's brighter than it was at earlier stages. And it tends to carry over even into our dreams, so we're much more likely to be having lucid dreams and things like that. Or out-of-body experiences are very easily accessible. Not all third degree initiates leave their bodies, but it's very effortless to do so if you want to, and so many do. Work, and that allows people to do things on the inner dimensions as well, like be of service, for instance. So the third initiation is considered a major turning point because physical karma is done. If the person doesn't want to come back into a physical body anymore, there's no karmic compulsion to. So it's the first stage of real mastery, where physical body, physical karma, physical desires and aversions have been transformed and illuminated and mastered. There's higher plane work to do, but that's a very significant accomplishment. So the third initiation isn't super common. There are, many third degree initiates in the world, but by comparison to the other stages, they're a tiny minority. And to truly integrate that is very advanced.